It's funny. Some civilizations, they disappear from the maps, but they never really truly leave. Their ideas, their art, their words, they just become part of a new story, hiding right there in plain sight. Today, we're going to explore one of the most influential of them all.
Wow, just look at this. What you're seeing isn't just a building, it's a key. It's a key to unlooking a chapter of European history that lasted nearly 800 years. It was called Al-Andalus. This was a time when an incredible Islamic civilization flourished across what we now know as Spain and Portugal. And its DNA, well, it's still woven into the very fabric of the region today.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. We're going to uncover how this so-called lost world is actually still very much alive. It's in the cathedrals people pray in, it's in the palaces they visit, and it's even in the words they speak every single day.
To really get your head around the scale of this, just look at the timeline. We're talking about a period from 711 all the way to 1492. That's almost 8 centuries. That is a long time, a huge stretch of history, where cities like Cordoba became these shining lights of science, art, and philosophy, in a way the rest of Europe hadn't seen for generations. This wasn't just a quick visit. This was an era that defined the entire region.
All right, so where do we even begin to look for these echoes? Well, the most visible place to start is with faith. The incredible sacred architecture of Al-Andalus didn't just define its cities back then, it's still shaping them today, and probably not in the way you'd think.
So here's the really fascinating part. When the Christian Reconquista started retaking these cities, they often didn't just tear down the grand mosques. No, instead, they built right inside of them, converting them into churches. And what this created were these absolutely unique hybrid buildings where you can literally see one layer of history sitting right on top of another.
And this is the perfect example. This is the Great Mosque, or Mezquita, of Cordoba. Imagine walking through this. You're in a forest of over 850 columns with these iconic red and white double arches. And then bam, right in the center, a massive Renaissance cathedral nave just rises up out of nowhere. It's breathtaking and honestly a little wild. A total fusion of two different worlds in one building. And this wasn't a one-off thing in Cordoba. Over in Seville, you have the famous Giralda Tower on the left. But get this, it wasn't built to be a bell tower. It was the minaret for the city's huge mosque. Now, look at the tower on the right. That's in Marrakesh, Morocco. See the family resemblance? It's uncanny, right? That's because they were designed by the same dynasty. They're basically sister towers separated by the sea, which is just the perfect symbol of their shared history.
Okay, so we've seen faith. Now let's talk about power. Because the rulers of Al-Andalus, they weren't just building places of worship. Oh no. They were building what they saw as paradise on earth, these incredible palaces that were just total statements of wealth, sophistication, and mind-blowing artistry. And the absolute pinnacle of this has to be the Alhambra in Granada. Don't just think of it as a palace. This was an entire palace city, kind of the last stand for Al-Andalus. This place just screams that it came from a civilization that cared deeply about poetry, mathematics, and how to use light and water to create these unbelievably beautiful, peaceful spaces. Just zoom in for a second. Look at the insane level of detail here. Every single surface is covered in complex geometric tile work, delicate carved stucco that honestly looks like stone lace, and this beautiful flowing Arabic calligraphy. And woven into all those patterns is the motto of the ruling family, repeated thousands of times, Wallah Ghaliba illa Allah, which means there is no victor but God. There's this amazing description from an old Arab poet who called the Alhambra, with its pale walls sitting in the middle of all the green hills, a pearl set in emeralds. And honestly, when you see it, you get it. The whole idea was to build a little piece of heaven right here on earth. And it wasn't just in Granada either. This wasn't some one-hit wonder. This incredible art here, that's from the Aljaferia Palace, which is hundreds of miles away in Zaragoza. It just proves that this deep commitment to complex, beautiful design was a signature style all across the peninsula. So you have this incredibly dramatic moment in 1492. The last king hands over the keys to Granada. And you've got to ask yourself, is that it? Is the story over? Was it all just monuments and memories? The answer is not by a long shot. Sometimes the most powerful legacies are the ones you can't see so easily.
They're hidden in the way people talk, in the food they cook, in what it actually feels like to be in a place. The influence of Al-Andalus basically soaked into the very soul of Iberia and became a permanent part of its culture. Okay, so there's this really cool concept that helps explain all this, and it's called mudéjar art. Basically, after the Christian Reconquista, you had all these amazing Muslim craftsmen who stayed behind, and they started blending their own incredible artistic styles with the European styles of the new rulers. So it's not just a mix, it's like a cultural conversation that's happening in stone and tile. And then there's the language itself. Now, Spanish is a Romance language, mostly from Latin, right? But what's wild is that something like 4,000 words in Spanish come straight from Arabic. That is a huge chunk. And we're not talking about obscure words here. Look at this stuff. It's the basics. Algodón for cotton, azúcar for sugar, aceite for oil. Even the word for mayor, alcalde, comes from the Arabic word for a judge. It just shows you how deeply these cultures were connected.
But wait, there's more. The influence just keeps going. They brought in amazing irrigation systems called acequias that totally changed farming. They introduced foods we take for granted now. Think oranges, almonds, saffron. Their leatherwork and pottery were legendary. And maybe the biggest deal of all, their scholars saved all these ancient Greek texts on science and philosophy, translated them, and basically reintroduced them to the rest of Europe, which helped kickstart the Renaissance. I mean, that's a huge deal. So when you put it all together, you realize Al-Andalus never really vanished. It just transformed. It became an inseparable part of the puzzle that is modern Spain and Portugal. I love how the author of the book that inspired this whole explainer put it. He wrote that these monuments aren't just dead history. He said, "These ruins are still alive in me, present in my feelings." And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? A civilization's truest legacy isn't just in the stone and mortar it built, but in the echo it leaves behind in people for centuries to come.